I feel like I like 100% look like I belong in Texas today with like this hair and the flannel, and I even wore cowboy boots today and like ripped jeans and stuff. It's just, I don't even know who I am anymore. I've always wanted to do story time videos. A lot of my friends do them. A lot of the people that I watch do them. They're some of my favorite videos to watch. So today I thought I would tell you guys about the job from hell. This was the worst job, and I have a lot of experience in retail. I have been through a lot of weird shit in retail. I have worked at like every place you can name. But this was a job that I actually got as a waitress, and it wasn't supposed to be that, but I will tell you about it, obviously, as we get into the story. So, yeah, I'm not gonna be naming this establishment because I'm really scared of getting sued. It happened so long ago. I really should have reported it when it happened, but I was really new to the area. I was really scared, and I didn't, and I should have. It is a really popular restaurant chain. This one, the problem was the management. I didn't really have an issue with the chain as a whole, which is why I'm not gonna like call anyone out, because it was this particular restaurant. And if I slip up and say the name, I'm gonna feel like an idiot. So, okay, let's get started. I was in Kansas City. At the time I was living in Kansas, and I was 19. Although I had had a lot of retail work, including working in cell phones, which you would think would be a really great like transferable job, but it was a privately owned AT&T store, so it wasn't like a transferable job when I moved to Kansas. And I was having a lot of trouble finding work because I lived in an army town, and in case you don't know, they're overflooded with people just like me who are spouses who either have a little bit of work experience or a lot of work experience and have, you know, a lot of recommendations from different places, but it's hard to get a job because everyone's going for the same stuff, you know? So I've been looking for months and I hadn't been able to find anything. And we were in Kansas City for one of Tyler's jiu-jitsu tournaments. That's my husband, in case you are not a familiar watcher of my channel. And we were planning on staying the weekend and going shopping and stuff and just kind of chilling out. It had been a hard couple of months, and we were just like looking to chill, you know what I mean? Like we hadn't really been out of this tiny town in Kansas since I moved there, you know, like a few months before. I got this call, and I had applied as a hostess at this restaurant. And they were like, well, we can't get you a job at the town that you live in, but they were willing to give me a job at the same restaurant that they had in the town that was like maybe half an hour away. I've been looking for a job for months. Like I've got to start working. I'm not only going crazy, I'm broke AF, and like I have to work. They were like, okay, well, can you come in for an interview this afternoon? And I was like, I'm actually not in town right now. And I explained to them like I'm 2 hours away, and basically, you know, I wouldn't be able to make it back in time even if I left in like 10 minutes. And they were like, well, why don't you leave now? And we'll just see you when you get here. It was just really bizarre that they were really short with me, and she sounded really irritated. So I was like, I'm 100% a pushover. Honestly, I was so desperate for work at this point that I was like, okay. So I told my husband the situation. Luckily his tournament was over. He was so excited because again, I hadn't been able to find work for so long that we immediately drove back. And I was not dressed for the interview, but the way that they had said it made me feel like, I don't know, it was weird. Like I was in a t-shirt and jeans, but this woman made it sound like I needed to come in for that interview right then and there. So I went in a t-shirt and jeans. During the interview, she started asking waitressing questions. I kind of like answered them and how I would do the things that she was asking me, but I was like, but I applied for the hostessing position. Yeah, but we don't need a hostess. Nothing against people who are waitresses or waiters or anything. It's just not something I think that I would necessarily excel at. And I'm kind of a klutz, and like carrying food for multiple people, just the entire idea of it really sounds scary to me. Well, yeah, we can bring you on right now. We would probably train you as a waitress, but then you could start hostessing once you're through your training. And something about it just didn't seem right, but I said yes because again, desperate. So obviously I got the job because this is a story about the worst job in the history of ever. This job lasted 1 week, and it was the worst week of my entire life. I cannot begin to express to you how awful this was. Waitressing, not that bad actually, and I had a lot of fun. My coworkers were all really nice. People who work in the food industry have a tremendous amount of patience, and they go through so much shit that I just like had mad respect for them, and they were the coolest people ever. I really loved the girl who was training me. My problem again is not with this restaurant. It's not even with the fact that I was a waitress. On the third day that I'm there, this is a Wednesday I think, because I think I started Monday, and then on Wednesday, I'm not even halfway through my shift, and the manager approaches me. And she is like, hey, you know, are you done with your work? Yeah, I'm done with my work. And, you know, I'm just like following people and like kind of doing busy work. I don't really want to say because I feel like it would give this place away. I was helping people bus tables. It was really, really slow. You know, it was fine. Like I didn't have anything to do. And she was like, okay, well, can you wash the windows for me? And I was like, yeah, that's not a problem. So I'm like working on the windows, and I got through one window, and she walks up to me and kind of like briefed us on this at the beginning of the day when we all started our shifts, because I was a part of like the 8 a.m. crew. It's probably like noon, and I think I got off at like 4. She was like, and she was just talking to me, by the way. She was like, so as you know, the health inspector's coming in, and it was a health inspector from the restaurant chain. So it was specifically from them. They really knew what to look for. But the problem is we don't really know when they're coming in. And I was like, yeah, like that's gonna be really, you know, like kind of anxiety ridden for you. I thought she was just making small talk. And so she whips out her cell phone and she's like, so what is your number? I thought it was a weird like segue into that, but I told her my number. And I wasn't supposed to have my phone on me. But it buzzes in like my front pocket, you know, like you have the little thing, I don't know what they're called, like the little like fanny packs for waitressing where you put in your like notepad and pens and, you know, like your checkbook and everything like that. I don't actually know the proper terms of any of these things. And she was like, so I just sent you a text and it's of this health inspector's license plate. He's staying at the hotel that I just texted you at, and the hotel was literally like right next to this restaurant, like next to it, like less than 2 minutes away. And she asked me to call her when he left and follow him. That is illegal on so many levels. I immediately had like a sick feeling in my stomach. I was like, this is not cool. This is not chill. Like something's very wrong here. And I kind of like paused for a few minutes, and then I was like, okay, yeah, okay. It didn't really sound like she was asking me to. She was telling me to. I went to the hotel and I immediately whipped out my cell phone and I called my dad. My dad is straight up. He was like, that's 100% illegal. You need to report it. You need to quit. What this woman's doing is like highly illegal. But he basically told me like not to hint that I was even thinking of quitting or anything. Like he told me to like play into it, tell this woman when he left, and then tell her that I had lost him. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't gonna like stalk this dude. And so I was like, okay, all right, yeah, no, I can do that and then I can quit. Person comes out of the hotel, and I actually, you know, it was a woman. She comes out of the hotel, I called the manager and I'm like, hey, she just left. And she was like, okay, well, can you follow her? And I was like, yeah. What I did was I like sat there in the parking lot and I watched the car go past the restaurant that I worked at. And when I realized she wasn't going in, I called back and I was like, oh, I lost her, but she went way past our, you know, restaurant. So you don't have anything to worry about. Where are you? And I like made up a place that was like 15 minutes down the road or something, you know? And she was like, oh, well, you're closer to home now anyways. You go on home, I'll go ahead and punch you out. You know, like everything will be fine. I obviously knew like this person was crazy, number one. This was highly illegal. I felt really weird about it, but I also honestly in the pit of my stomach knew I wasn't gonna quit because I needed the money. And honestly, like I had so quickly gotten myself out of that situation. I felt like there was no way that would happen again, you know what I mean? Like I felt like this had to be a desperate, desperate time because that manager was chill, dude. Like she and her husband were so chill. They had a few kids, like their kids were chill. It was a weird situation, you know what I'm saying? So what I did, just in case anything sketchy happened, I didn't delete the text messages. I kept a record of her sending me that inspector's like license plate number and a picture of their car because I thought that would be all the evidence I would need if I needed to prove the fact that she basically like asked me to stalk someone. So I went back into work the next day. I clocked in and I got out my like little timestamp thing, and it kind of like told me the hours that I had been working that week. It's like a little receipt. And it said that I had clocked out right when I had left and didn't like include the 2 hours I sat outside of that hotel like waiting for that woman to come out, the health inspector, and drive away. And I was supposed to be following them. But it said I had clocked out right when I left and I hadn't clocked out. So what I did is I took the receipt to one of the assistant managers and I was like, listen, I feel really weird about this to begin with, and you're telling me like I'm not gonna get paid for it? And she was like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, you know, you left the building and I think that they must have clocked you out on accident, like blah, blah, blah. And I look back now and I know why they did that, obviously, because they don't want to be paying me for stalking someone, essentially. You know, like at the time I was so naive and I was so dumb that I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, yeah, but they'll manually add it on later, you know, and I'm sure that they were paying out of their own pockets or doing some sort of like weird shit under the table to pay me for those hours. Yeah, that was really weird, and that happened on Thursday. So Thursday, I finished my shift, went home. Other than like having a weird feeling in my stomach about the fact that they had clocked me out when I left, and my dad and my husband telling me I had to quit because something so sketchy was going on, everything was fine. And I went back in for work on Friday. And Fridays are really busy in like the food industry, in case you do not already know. So I go back in on Friday, and I think that I had like the afternoon shift. Like I think I started at like 11, and like I went through early evening that day. I haven't been working for very long, like maybe an hour. The manager comes back in, and it's the woman. I never really had any issues with her husband, but they had several children, like 5 children. They were baby making machines, dude. Like more power to them, have those babies, but there were 5 of them. So she comes over, she taps me on the shoulder, and I'm like, I had my first table that day. Like I was waiting my very first table on my own, and I was doing a great job, might I add. When they left me their tip, like they left me a little note that said I had done really well. Besides the point. So I was waiting my first table that day. I was really excited. I didn't have much to do, but you know, that one table was my responsibility. And she comes over and she taps me on the shoulder, and she's like, my kids are out in my car. And I'm just staring at this woman like, great, like whoop-de fucking do, like what do you want from me? I was just like, okay, cool, like, all right. I need someone to watch them. What is she about to ask me to do? And I was like, there's no way this woman is about to ask me to babysit while I am working for this corporate chain like restaurant. There's no way, that wouldn't happen.
Can you go outside and just keep an eye on them for a while, like 10 minutes?
In your car? She's like, yeah, no, I mean, we're gonna leave the car running, like, you know, the air conditioning was gonna stay on. It was like summertime, you know. She was basically telling me to go outside and watch her kids. There were 5 kids. And she was like, you know, like, just keep them in line, they'll be fine, and whatever. I completely forgot to mention, she was white, but her husband was Indian, but their kids didn't speak English. Or if they did, I think that, like, the ones who were old enough to speak weren't gonna speak English around me. They probably didn't want me to know what they were saying. So I was in the car, and they were talking back and forth, and clearly I can't understand what they're saying. I introduced myself, and I was like, hi, I'm just gonna watch you guys for a few minutes. And they were like really freaking young. They were like 7 and like 5 were the oldest ones, and then the other ones were like really, really young. There was like 2 babies and a toddler. I kind of like introduced myself, and they just kind of like waved, and they were really sweet kids, but they were like talking back and forth. So obviously I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what happened in that conversation, but the boy gets up, just like smacks his sister across the face, like so hard. It was like so close to my ear too that it like hurt when I heard the sound. Great, no, this is perfect. Please hit each other, because that's what I really need right now. So of course now there's crying, and there's screaming kids, and they're hitting each other, and there's 5 of them, and I'm losing my mind. And I literally, in that car, like, I literally grabbed the phone and I called my husband and I bawled. And I was like, I have to quit this job. Like, there is no way that I can stay in this job. At that point, by the way, I had been in the car, the running car with those kids for half an hour. And he was like, yeah, no, that's freaking ridiculous. He wanted to come up and like basically like cuss the manager out then and there, and like ask why the hell like they were clocking me in to be a babysitter and to stalk people. And I was like, no, like I'll finish out the day. I will do this. I'm coming home. I'm never going back to work. Like, this is it. I wound up being in the car with those kids who were smacking each other and who I could not make stop smacking each other. I like texted their mom and stuff, and she was like, oh, you know, just do the best you can. Like, she didn't want to come out and like settle it, but like I wasn't gonna yell at anyone's kids either, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, maybe you should not hit each other. Maybe stop that. Frankly, like, I've been a babysitter before, and I've been in situations like that, and of course, like, I would take action then, but this was my manager's kids on the property of this restaurant, and everything felt really weird, and we were confined to a car. So like there wasn't a lot I could do. It wasn't like they were like beating the crap out of each other, by the way. They were just like smacking. That first smack was real intense, but I was just like, hey, stop. And they would cool it for a few minutes and then start again. So that was what happened. I go inside, I'm obviously livid. I was like, hey, I have an emergency, I have to go home. They didn't really ask any questions. I was just like, I have to go. And so I clocked out, I left, and I went home, and I told my husband, like, tomorrow I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna quit. I'm not giving a 2 weeks notice. This is like ridiculous. I cannot work here anymore. I've been working there for 5 days. I wanted to, at this point, log in the hours so that I could get paid. Like, I already had driven all the way out there. I didn't want to quit over the phone. I wanted to like explain myself in person. That's just not the kind of person I am. But I was like, I'm going to go in person. I'm going to quit. Like, this is what's going to happen. Like, you cannot make this shit up. Basically, the minute I get there, the manager walks up to me and she's real buddy and she was like, oh, so thanks so much for like watching my kids for me yesterday. That was so weird. Like, that never happens. And I'm like, yeah, sure it doesn't. Like, whatever. At this point, I absolutely despise this woman. I cannot believe I'm working for her. I can't believe the amount of like shady shit that's going on here. And I can't believe like I've been hired as a waitress and I'm literally being paid for none of the waitressing that I'm doing. Basically, I'm not doing any waitressing to get paid for. And she can tell I'm pissy. I'm like being short. She gets out her phone and she shows me a car, and it's a car's license plate. And I'm literally in my head like screaming. So today, the health inspector, like, okay, so before it was a corporate health inspector for that chain restaurant, this was the actual health inspector who like grades them. He is like the health inspector of all health inspectors. That's like a corporate health inspector to make sure they're in line with corporate. This is a health inspector. She's like, okay, well, he's staying at this hotel that's back towards your house. So I'd already driven all the way out there. It's a 30-minute drive. And she's like, so he's back at your house, basically, not at my house, but he's like, he's in my town, like in a hotel in my town. And she's like, I need you to drive there and wait for him to leave. Actually asked her if she was serious. I was like, you know, I just did that. Like, why are you asking me to do it again? Oh, well, you know, you're so capable and I know you've learned so much already. I know you don't really need any more training. And I was like, cool, then like, let me waitress. Let me do my job. And she was like, well, you know, like, I just really need you to be a team player. Like, she was 100% guilt tripping me. And I had started out the conversation thinking she was batshit. I left the conversation thinking I was the one in the wrong. Like, she was so manipulative, it wasn't even funny. And I left with a license plate number. And again, I had a friend at this point, like we were pretty good friends at this point, who was waitressing there. And she called me right after I left and she was like, they clocked you out again. You're not clocked into the system. Basically, I turned around, like I hadn't even left the parking lot. I immediately turned around and I walked back in and I was like, why was I clocked out? This was the manager. She was like, I don't think you were clocked out. Like, we're leaving you clocked in. Like, you're getting paid, obviously. Like, you're on your clock. Like, you're here. Yeah, I'll just make sure really quick. And she was like, no one clocked you out. So I walked over to the computer and I had been clocked out. That's so weird. I don't know who did that. Like, this was a grown-ass woman, like, playing with me. And I'm like a 19-year-old. And I was like, oh, well, that's okay. I'm sure it was a mistake. I'll clock myself back in. I clocked myself back in. I left again. And my friend is just kind of like standing over there in the corner. And she's just like, she looked horrified. I left. And 5 minutes down the road, my friend texted me again. And I checked my phone. And it said they clocked you out. And I didn't go to the hotel. I went home. I kept the text message information. I called my dad. I got all of the Better Business Bureau information. I got like all of the corporate restaurant information and I reported it to the restaurant chain, never heard anything back. Like the corporation as a whole probably didn't care that much, but I still have all of those text messages. There is still proof on my old cell phone. And even though I reported it to the corporation, like the head of the corporation, not the head, but like the right department for it, I didn't ever report it to the Better Business Bureau and I should have. I never went back to work. I called the next day. I told them I quit. At that point, I felt like the decency I was trying to impose upon them by like doing things like finishing out the day when she asked me to babysit her kids. Like I felt like that was a good thing to do. Maybe not necessarily the right thing to do, but I felt like that was the most decent thing to do. You know what I mean? Coming back in the next day to work out the day that she had scheduled me for. They hadn't created the next week's schedule. So I wasn't looking to like impose any difficulty upon them. I just wanted like out. And then to immediately be thrown back into this and then to be slapped in the face, not once, but twice. And we made a fool out of when she lied to me and told me she hadn't like clocked me out. So I called and I was like, don't put me on the schedule for next week. I quit. I will be in next Friday to pick up my check. She was like, oh my gosh, like what's wrong? Like she wanted to know why I was quitting. I don't feel comfortable in this working environment. Like I feel like you're asking me to do things that I'm not comfortable with. And she was like, I just want to do anything I can to help, like blah, blah, blah. And I could already tell at this point that I was being so manipulated and so used by this woman and she did not give two craps about me. That I was just like, no, like I do not want to work for you anymore. I will be in next Friday to pick up my check. I never got paid. I had worked 40 hours, not counting the time that she had clocked me out to go and stalk the health inspector. And then the other time she clocked me out to go and stalk the other health inspector. She didn't clock me out when I went and babysat her kids on the property. I never got paid for those hours because I never got paid at all. I went back in and they were like, oh, we need this, and this from you. And then she started like talking to me when I was there, and she was really mean. And she was like, I can't believe you would quit like that. Like, I didn't really like hire you thinking you were a quitter. And I just kind of like stared at her and I was like, I didn't think I was getting into this toxic of a work environment, but what the hell, we all make mistakes. I never got paid. They wouldn't call me. Every time I called, I literally got hung up on. Like I didn't chase the money tooth and nail, but I should have. And I really regret it. The reason I'm telling you this story today is because I had a friend really recently go through something super similar with a completely different company. If that is happening to you, please don't be shy. Please don't like step down and like let it happen, because this is not an abnormal thing. This isn't like, I think the whole stalking the health inspector thing was abnormal. I think like babysitting that woman's kids was abnormal, but the whole like not being paid for work that you do, please don't be shy because you don't want to make a scene. I know it can be hard to be confrontational, but I really wish I had, like, I wish I'd stuck up for myself because I deserve that money. I had worked so hard. On top of that, I had done things that made me so uncomfortable for this woman, like for her not to pay me and to disrespect me in that way. Learn from my mistake. Number one, if someone is asking you to do something that makes you uncomfortable, not only report it to the next higher up, I feel like a lot of jobs should give out when like you start there, ones that aren't shady, like information on how to report things that make you uncomfortable. Like a lot of places do have that, but I had to like go and research that on my own because obviously she wasn't gonna tell me how to report her ass. So make sure that you're not afraid to report it. Report it when it happens. Understand that you don't have to do anything you don't wanna do. And I wish I had like known that, you know, like I still feel really bad. I still did something super like illegal by going to that hotel specifically to wait for that woman to come out. You know what I mean? Like the entire situation was super illegal, but I still wish I had done something about it. So yeah, that's my craziest job ever. I don't think I left anything out, but I hope you guys liked the storytime video. If you did, give me a thumbs up for more storytime videos. Maybe I'll make some more. Subscribe to my channel if you have not already. I make new videos all the time. I try to make them Monday through Friday. I've been kind of off here recently. I took a little break from that where I was uploading like 3 times a week, but I'm trying to upload 5 times a week again. So if you guys want to subscribe, that would be awesome. The button's right there. Just saying. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.